everybody, and welcome back to What Did You Learn? I'm your host, Ahava, and I'm very excited to have with me today, and this is really going to be a great interview about vaccines and SEO and all that stuff that we're all thinking about right now. Jen O'Meara, who is the Director of Digital Strategy at Eruptr. I've known Eruptr for, 10 years, is it now?
It's a while. I've been here for 5, so.
Yeah, it's a long time, and they're a fantastic resource for anybody looking for a search engine marketing firm in the healthcare space. Jen, welcome so much.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled.
It's great to have you. So my audience loves to get to know people a little bit before we dive into who they are professionally. So in the course of the last 700 years, what ice cream have you found yourself devouring again and again as comfort food?
That's actually a really easy question because I'm pregnant and I'm not normally a sweets person, but I want everything sweet. So mint chocolate chip, I can't get enough of it.
That's my favorite flavor. Now, which brand do you feel is the best?
I like I think it's a Turkey Hill all natural mint chocolate chip. Don't give me like diet. I want full on like real cream, sugar, all that.
Yeah, if you're gonna eat ice cream, you should eat ice cream. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm totally down with that. And so tell us a little bit about what you do as the Director of Digital Strategy at Eruptr. Like, walk us through like either a typical day or what your major responsibilities are, besides waking up and checking the news and thinking, great, another doomsday.
Yeah. So in my day-to-day role, I really work with our team in terms of from both an operations and a sales perspective. How are we going to achieve our clients' goals? So when we're working with them and they've got digital marketing needs, usually we're focused on patient acquisition and increasing volumes. And with that being said, what tactics are going to address that and make that, achievable? So usually search engine marketing is the number one thing we recommend because we're getting people at the moment of intent. So with that being said, I work with sales from a proposal and budgetary process, and then our strategic account management teams, I work with them as it relates to what's the strategy on the build, how do we kind of look at that campaign and how do we build it out? We've done so many that for us, it's usually pretty easy for us to figure out a good strategy, but then sometimes you'll get those niche curveball clinical campaigns and you need to think about them a little bit differently. I also work very closely with our partners at Google and Facebook. So I'm meeting with them bi-weekly all the time, trying to keep up at least on the ever-changing world that is Google and Facebook. Sometimes we know things before they know it. And, even in the sense of the pandemic, there was a lot that happened very quickly that they weren't even able to get communications out fast enough. We sort of had to go out to them and they didn't even know the answer yet. So there was a lot of pivoting. But in my role, I also oversee our call qualifying service that we offer to clients if they don't have time to listen to calls themselves. And we also offer geofencing, and that's something I oversee as well.
Wow, you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah, we do lots of fun stuff.
So when the pandemic started, if somebody had come to you 2 weeks before, 2 months before and said, hey, Jen, you are not going to believe this, but this is about to hit, what do you wish you had known?
I think what I wish I had known was the overabundance of false information that was going to quickly come out. And granted, the infodemic. Granted, some of that doesn't entirely impact us from a digital standpoint and the campaigns we're running, but it does impact us because it forces Google and Facebook to put policies in place that then make it harder for our campaigns to run without getting flagged. So for instance, when this happened, Google put a policy in place that you needed to get whitelisted in order to mention COVID in your ads or your keywords. We had a client who had COVID in the URL, and even that needed to have whitelisting. Now, Facebook was a little bit looser, they usually are. But with that being said, I think just knowing that it was one of those things that no one was prepared for, but it would have been good for us to kind of know what this information overload impact was going to have to us from a day-to-day standpoint.
Okay, so this infodemic is a real concern. And I think what we're watching happening, and from a lot of different reasons, is that .gov sites are losing their ability to convince the American public of what's happening, just because I think part of it is just that the virus is changing, but maybe people don't really understand that scientists are just trying to be really transparent and things are constantly changing. For example, this week, the CDC change quarantine from 14 days to 10 days. And, you watch people like start to conspiracy theory about why that is. So this is a real issue for us, but it's an opportunity for hospitals. So what would you tell a hospital marketer who's getting ready to think about the COVID vaccine and how they should be talking about that and communicating that from a search perspective in order to make sure that they're doing the right thing across the board?
I think if we have to look at the bright side of anything over the past, 9 months, 6 to 9 months, it's been that hospitals and doctors have gone back to being leaders and people that are now trusted. Before it was sort of, how do we get people to listen to our hospitals? Now it's, those are the people that the community is going to first because they feel like they're an authentic source of information. So for when we were running a lot of advertising around just advertising COVID testing, which was what a lot of our clients did, either COVID testing, COVID resources, or just trying to highlight how the community could help their frontline essential employees. So as it relates to the vaccine, I've actually talked to Google and Facebook a bit about this of, what do you think is going to happen once this is released? How are your advertising policies going to change? From a Google perspective, we haven't heard anything more aside from the fact that it'll definitely require a whitelisting, which is pretty simple for us to do. We manage that on behalf of our clients. With that being said, from the Facebook side, it seems a lot more unclear over there right now because they're looking at it from a social, government, political standpoint where they might consider that social advertising and how are people speaking to it. But the way that our healthcare clients are going to look at it is it's more, we're trying to get people to get the vaccine. How do you get it? Where do you go? So I can't really get a clear answer from Facebook at this time as to, are there going to be policies in place? Am I going to have to do an authorization on behalf of a client to get permission to even do this? So that's something that I would recommend whoever your clients are working with from a digital standpoint, that they make sure they're talking to those vendors to make sure that they're aware of what's going to be required of me, whether it's the agency working on their behalf or it's something that the client needs to do. With all of that being said, from a search perspective, keeping your keywords tight, because you're going to have a million people that are looking for information about the vaccine, what it's, what are the implications of it, what are the side effects of it. We want to focus on where can you get it. So whether it's called, COVID vaccine near me, COVID vaccine appointment, that you're going to want to really focus on those low funnel keywords for your SEM campaign. To me, SEM and Facebook are going to be critical in this. I think if health systems want to continue to be that source of truth, having videos that they can run on YouTube and Facebook that speak to their own employees getting, the vaccine, the C-suite getting the vaccine, showing people in the community coming together from, not just, it's not even about marketing, it's about making people feel safe and feel like they can trust this. Because to your point, when you see information change so much, it becomes hard to know what is fact.
Right. No, I agree with you. So I actually have this whole theory that we should call it the COVID shot and not the COVID vaccine, because, who doesn't get a flu shot, unless you're a flu anti-vaxxer, right? It's a flu vaccine, but call it the COVID shot and all of a sudden people are lining up the door. So I want to get back though to that whole idea of the trust and then the information changing. How do you think this whole thing is going to shake out? So yes, healthcare has done a great job of sort of filling that vacuum of trustworthiness and, authority, but what happens when this sort of, is it going to go smoothly with the vaccine? How's it really going to work out? Are hospitals going to have to shut down their elective surgeries again because of this second wave? Like, do you have a crystal ball prediction?
I mean, what my gut tells me is what we're seeing is with the first wave, there was a lot more scaling back in terms of marketing, which meant a scaling back in terms of operations of what health systems were doing. We're not seeing that happen as much this time around.
No, we're not either.
Yeah, it seems like they're still trying to fill the funnels in preparation for being able to still do surgeries, still do treatments. And another plus side that's come from this is you can't use the excuse now that people aren't comfortable with technology. If my 72-year-old dad and, my 60-some-year-old mom can jump on a telehealth appointment, there's no more excuses to say we can't do that. And I think that's here to stay. Now, what the insurance repercussions will be in terms of what they cover and what they don't cover is kind of, we'll have to see. But I think what's going to end up happening is I do think we're seeing lower search volumes in the sense that people are hesitant to get treatments that they may not need. And obviously, we don't want people to hold off getting treatment for important things. But when you see search volumes drop, even around mammograms, or you see it drop around just traditional routine appointments that should be scheduled, there's that fear because one, people are being told not to leave the house at all, but then they're being told like, don't stop going to these important appointments too. So it's kind of in terms of a crystal ball, I think the winter is going to be a very slow time. And my personal opinion is I don't think we'll see whatever new normal we'll have or normal until 2022 is my opinion on it. I think we'll next summer be in a more normal looking place, but that also is dependent upon enough people getting the vaccine where it makes it okay for people to go out. Because, for people that children, pregnant women, people they haven't done enough tests on to know if the vaccine's safe, there's still a whole group of people that we don't know when and how they're going to get it. So I think there's going to be a lot of concern around that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. It's actually interesting though that you talked about like the videos and that kind of approach to doing more content marketing and education around this is the vaccine, this is what it is. You also just gave me an idea that there really needs to be a lot of education around do not prolong these kind of appointments because it could end up being way more dangerous than COVID. And, if you look at the numbers, it's dangerous and it's scary. And I think the scariest part of it is that we don't know how it affects different people. But at the end of the day, breast cancer without monitoring is definitely going to kill you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, these things don't go on hold. And I think that's another important aspect for marketers to keep in mind is, keep the message simple. Now isn't the time to be verbose and write these long-winded messages or long-winded social content. Get direct to the point, speak to what people are thinking about, don't beat around the bush. People are smart. They understand what they need to do, and just make it easy for them to know what they need to do, trust where they need to go, and find the information to make the appointment and get it done.
Totally. That's what we're passionate about, right? Like,
right.
Health communications, that's what we believe in.
Right.
Okay, so you and I are at a conference. Hopefully it doesn't take till 2022, but okay. You're having a baby, so and I get to hold your adorable daughter. And you say to me, I'm holding a drink, you're holding a baby. And I say to you, what's like the one thing you really learned here that you're going to take with you in your professional toolbox for the rest of your life?
I think there's kind of two different things that I would look at. One of it's going to be just flexibility and patience and compassion. Honestly, I don't know if there's ever been a time in my life where everyone was going through the same thing. And maybe 9/11 is probably the closest thing to equate it to.
Yeah.
But this is different in the fact that every employee, mother, child, husband, everybody was impacted in some way. So, you start to almost feel a little bit more of a kindred spirit with all levels that you work with, because you're watching people with their kids in the background and they're saying, hold on, I got to put you on mute. And it almost makes everyone a little bit more human. I hope it also shows people that, and for a lot of, you and I are remote, we've been remote for a long time. I hope it shows companies that you can 100% run a company remotely and trust your employees to do the right thing and get their work done. Eruptr's always been remote. And, I think that's something that I hope comes out of this, that people learn. But there's also something to be said for getting together in person, and you can't replace that in a virtual environment. And I think the other big thing is to just embrace that there doesn't need to be these excuses and walls that we put up for why, health systems shouldn't be implementing better technology to make it easier to get the care you need. We know people are adaptable. I think we try to make it harder, and we say it's harder, and people aren't going to embrace it. But if you give them the option and you make it easy enough, or if you force them in the case of a pandemic, they're going to be able to adapt. And I think that's something. Being adaptable is just huge in every aspect of life. When we talk about patient experience, this always kind of drives me nuts. Like, it's great if the building looks beautiful, and that's wonderful. But if I can't get in to get an appointment, or you make it that I've got to coordinate with 3 different doctors, and they're all part of the same system, but then someone has records in one system and someone has records in another. If I can just stop at CVS and pick up milk, bread, and get my shot and move on with my day, we're seeing an increase just from the urgent care side of Walgreens and CVS's and everybody else in the mix from a competitor standpoint. So, healthcare doesn't have time to sit back and wait. And they just, like you said, we need to be able to adapt and move quickly. And that was something that I think Eruptr tried to do with the pandemic rolling out. Was it was less about, okay, market your services, but how can we help you communicate and get your message out there, in the quickest, most efficient way possible.
Yeah, I love it. I love what you're saying. It's like, be clear, get the message out, give people what they need, and figure out the operational side of it so that those two
right
match. It's great. Jen, where can people find you?
Oh, well, you can find me at jen@eruptr.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, very active there, more following than I am posting. I wish I was more active. So you can always email me at jen@eruptr.com. I will be going out on maternity leave in January, but
catch her before then.
But my wonderful team will be here, and we've got a great group. We've got lots of wonderful services, from digital marketing to SEO to health risk assessments. So we're here to help, and we really want to be a partner in your efforts. So
awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.